Hello, Noob Watchmakers. Long time no see. It's been already 2 weeks since Easter break. I hope all of you had a nice break. Yeah, 2 weeks feels like an eternity nowadays, given all that's happening in the world. And partially, I love this hobby, watchmaking hobby, because I can turn off my phones and everything and just really focus on basically solving puzzles, in my opinion, to problem solve and to repair this mechanical marvel. This is the vintage Citizen automatic watch. It was sold as a spare, part spare watch, but it seems like it's running. I bought it for 10 euros with the Sam watch that I featured 2 videos ago. So yeah, it was a very cheap watch, and you cannot usually find these kind of deals online. I was very lucky to find this watch. Yeah, anyhow, here is the watch on a Timegrapher to check whether it's working well, but obviously it's not working well. Bit error is 5 milliseconds, which is way too big of an error for the balance. But it's running. As you can see, the balance is moving left and right, but very weak, very weak amplitude. Hopefully we can address that after servicing this watch by cleaning all the parts and reassembling. Here is the crown coming out, the stem. And now I'll start to disassemble the watch, starting from removing the hands. Yes, so this is actually my first Citizen watch to repair. I just didn't really have, I don't know, much interest aesthetically for Citizen watches. I don't know. I was more geared. I was more drawn toward Seiko watches somehow. I don't know why. It's just, I guess, personal preference. So I was curious about the Citizen watch, and this is the Citizen Movement 8200. So I heard it's a very well-known movement and really mass-produced. So it should be easy to find a spare part for this movement if you are going to repair one of these movements in the future. It's not a rare movement, so you should be able to definitely find spare parts even if you buy a broken one. Here I've used the plastic bag to make sure that the C-ring that's holding the day wheel in place, not to fly away, so I disassemble it within the bag, just in case. I have also noticed that unlike automatic Seiko movements, these Citizen movements, you can wind the mainspring with the crown and a stem, which is great. I think it's better than the Seiko movement in that sense. And here I see, okay, so the date wheel spring just flew off a little bit, but it didn't fly so far. Now I'm just disassembling the front side of the movement. I don't know which part does what, but the mechanical guide, which was published by Citizen or Miyota, basically shows the name of every part and the part number for each part. So in case you need to identify the part that is visibly broken and need to order a replacement, you can refer to the guide. I will leave a link to this technical guide for this movement, so it will be in the description below. Yeah, so I would, as usual, take the video and I will take photos along the way so that I can refer it back to it when I reassemble the movement. Okay, so this is the main bridge that's holding all the trains and barrel and the escapement wheel as well. If you're a vintage Citizen watch fan, is there a specific model that that you like or you own. I'd love to know more about citizen watches, so please leave a comment if you have any suggestions. And this is an additional bridge that's holding the R wheel. I see that better made movements have more bridges, just for serviceability, I guess. Yeah, so I also see that on this movement. So I can already see this a really well made movement. Now I am soaking it in the isopropyl alcohol and pre-cleaning. I have skipped this pre-cleaning part, but I did pack the jewel holes of the main bridges to remove residual oil layers. So that's very important. Before I clean the movement, I always pre-clean the parts, the main plate, the bridges, and whatnot. So here's a watch cleaning machine. It's all finished, and I will start to lay the parts on the mat, and I'll start to assemble exactly backwards how I disassembled. So this is really helpful to have a video, and if possible you can also use a software like a CapCut, which is a free software to reverse the video that you took disassembling the movement, so that you can easily just if you reverse the video, then all you have to do is just follow the video and reassemble the movement. So that's what I usually do. It's a lot easier than looking at the technical guide. And here I have also ordered a new mainspring from AliExpress, because this is a really popular movement. So I could even find this Miyota 8200 clone mainspring on AliExpress. And usually the mainspring comes in this ring, and it's sometimes tricky to push the entire mainspring into the barrel, because the outer layer of the mainspring sometimes gets stuck, and then when that happens it just unwinds. The entire mainspring unwinds, and you need a spring winder to rewind it and put it back in to the barrel. But this time I sort of managed it. If you have any good method to push the new mainspring into the barrel, please let us know. I don't know what would be a good tool for this, because this has to be a circular and exact width of the inside diameter of the barrel. So it's sort of tough to do it actually with the tweezer, but this time it worked. And we'll see how the spring performs. It was only €1.50. Can you believe that? So cheap. Usually when I buy mainsprings here in Germany, usually costs around €12. So it's about 10 times cheaper, I believe. Yeah, if you buy this. I couldn't find the exact 8200 Miyota mainspring anyway. It probably would cost 3 times the watch. The cost of the watch. The watch was only €10, so the original part with mainspring would cost probably €30. So it didn't make much sense to buy the original part in this case. I also was out of curiosity. I wanted to check whether the mainspring from AliExpress actually performs. Here I am lightly tapping the entire movement while holding the main bridge slightly downwards with a silicone stick, so that the pivots of these trains sort of slide into the jewel holes. When they are aligned, then I can screw the main bridge down. So here I am putting the palette fork back in the bridge, aligning the pivot into the hole, and that's good. Just cannon pinion going back. And oiling the pivots. I used to oil the gear teeth, which you're not supposed to do. I didn't learn this watchmaking repair. I only did it by looking at YouTube videos, and none of the good watchmakers do this. But I somehow I started to oil the teeth of a gear, which you should never do, only the pivot. But one of the viewers showed me that I should not do that, so I don't actually oil the teeth of the gear anymore. So thank you so much, and I really appreciate your comments, and whether it's encouraging comment or critical comment, I welcome all. I love to learn more about watchmaking and improve my skills, and share, what I have found along the way. So please leave a comment if you have anything to say. Thank you. So I am now finishing the front facade of the movement. This is the day wheel, and the C-ring goes in. I have to press it all the way in, like so. And I'm putting the balance back in to see if the watch runs. And it's not running at all. Assuming the entire movement has been cleaned and there's a new mainspring, I sort of suspected that the balance is faulty. So I actually ordered this replacement balance complete from AliExpress. Also a clone. I paid a few euros for it. And I decided to measure the balance staff length. This original balance staff is 3.33 millimeter long, and this clone balance staff is 3.34 34 millimeter long, which means they are basically identical. 0.01 difference is not much, but as you can see, the top is the clone and the bottom is the original, and it is clear that the original part is machined a lot better than the clone one. And this is the original, and this is the clone. And the shape of the jewel, as you can see, is a lot more clear and distinguished on the left one, which is the original one. So I decided not to use this balance because the balance, I thought initially balance staff has worn out on the original one. So I was expecting the balance staff would be a lot shorter on the original, but it wasn't the case. So I just couldn't figure out what's wrong with it. I put the balance back in and it still didn't run. So I checked whether the hairspring was spaced evenly, concentric, and it looks fine to me. There's no problem with the hairspring. And then I checked the pallet fork, and there you see the problem immediately. And yeah, the tip of the pallet fork was bent to the left. I don't know when and how that happened. I mean, I worked on this watch for about 2 weeks, and I don't know, somewhere along the line I have bent this pallet fork, probably with excessive force. While the balance was installed, I probably pushed left too hard. And now with the adjustment, the watch seems to run a lot better than before. So with the stud adjustment, I managed to bring the bit error down to 2.3 millisecond, which is still not ideal. It should be around 0.6 or lower. So I went back and then I bent that pallet fork slightly more to the right under the microscope, and like so. It's a very delicate piece. I could probably snap into if I put more pressure on it, so I was very delicate on it. Now the bit error has decreased, so that was the culprit for sure. Yes, sometimes I introduce new problems along the way, and this is why I am very, very careful when I am handling the parts, but well, I have figured it out, so I was very happy that watch runs now smoothly. And I usually never touch the dials when I restore watches, but in this case, it's a different problem because, as you can see, it's so dirty and it's visibly, I don't know, rust, water. It's definitely on the dial, and I was hoping that I could remove it with a little bit of distilled water and soap. And notice what happens here. Boom. Do you see that the mark on the in this mark, you say it just disappeared with just a very light stroke. So sometimes, and many times actually, these like the font automatic or this black markings are printed directly on the surface of this dial, and if you apply water on it, it just dissolves. So you gotta be super careful. I've already removed on automatic the part of C. I have mistakenly removed part of the C, as you can see. But yeah, so you gotta be careful. But I went ahead and then I cleaned the dial very, very carefully, very slowly with distilled water with just a drop of soap. And on the indices, I had to use more like a pegwood because I needed to get rid of this really tough residue on the hard surface. So I rubbed it and then cleaned it carefully one by one. And I think the dial is better in this case. And now I can polish the case to remove light scratches. I use Dremel tool and Dialux green compound to remove the scratches from the case. And here I have made a small gadget using a 3D printer to hold the metal bracelet. Whenever I polish and remove scratches, I thought it would be easier to have this kind of tool to hold the bracelet, and also for later brushing the bracelet. With this bracelet holder, it's so much easier to hold the bracelet while polishing. When you're brushing, you have to make a very straight line. You have to move in a linear motion, and when you hold this sort of flimsy bracelet, it's hard to control when you're brushing. So I now have masked the middle part of the bracelet, and I will use this sort of a jig that I have just printed, 3D printer, to use it as a jig to brush the bracelet, as you can see. And it has worked wonderfully. Yeah, I was so happy with this result. And yeah, so the only downside of this model is that it is basically custom modeled, so bracelet length cannot be really easily adjusted. I have yeah, if you have a same wrist diameter as I do, then you could definitely download this and print it out and use it for your projects. But if you have a thin or thicker wrist, then it could be not very compatible. But I will upload this file, this 3D file, in case you're curious to look at it or to use it. I will upload it. I have used a nut and bolt to hold the parts together. So now I am removing the masking the tape to see the contrast between the brush part and the polish part. As you can see, I think it's acceptable. It's not perfect. I'm not trying to renew the entire case and the bracelet, but just to improve it. And I think it's so much better than before. It's a lot cleaner. It's not a new condition, but it's definitely acceptable for me. Okay, so final rinse with boiling water and drop of dish soap again. And I will run it in the ultrasonic cleaner. And here it is. I think I'm happy with this. I'll now install a new glass because the old glass was way too scratched up. I ordered this new glass and I'll use this glass installing tool, or I don't know how you call that, glass tool, to fit it in and compress it so that the glass diameter would slightly narrow, and you can press you can actually pull the case up in order to fit the glass, and you would loosen the tool so the glass would expand again and fit tightly inside the case bezel. Here's the last puzzle, which is the automatic weight rotor of the movement, and now I am installing the hands. Here's a second hand. So satisfying to finally put the second hand in because it moves so smoothly. Now I am checking if the day wheel works, and the date wheel did not turn. I don't know whether this is how it should be. Yeah, so please let me know if this is faulty or not. I could manually move the minute hand to 45 minutes and then forward it to past 12 o'clock to move the date and do that back and forth to change the date, but yeah, I'm not so sure whether it's by design it works like that, or I've missed something, or yeah, it's damaged still. But I can still wear it and the watch is running really accurately, and yeah, I mean, the watch cost is beside the point. I think it's a beautiful watch. It's my first Citizen watch, and yeah, I was very, very happy with the result. And the accuracy is really accurate, and it's a really well made movement, so it sort of changed my perspective on the Citizen watches. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I have more watch repair videos coming up, which some of them are more complicated than this watch, more difficult to repair. So I hope you tune in and subscribe if you haven't done so already. See you in the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye.